Little girls, this seems to say, never stop upon your way. Never trust a stranger friend. No one knows how it will end. As you're pretty, so be wise. Wolves may lurk in every guise. Handsome they may be, and kind, gay, or charming, never mind. Now, as then, 'tis simple truth. Sweetest tongue has sharpest tooth.
Greetings, fellow adventurers. This is Vexus, and this is the introduction for Let's Play The Path. If you are looking for the start of the actual gameplay, as what I usually do with Let's Plays, that will be in the following video. Will just be the introduction. However, before I get on with that introduction, I just wanted to say a few words about the voting results from the previous video. And first I'd like to say a big thank you to all of the people who voted. I appreciate it. We had a record turnout on the vote, and I decided to basically pick the most voted game from each category. From the blind Let's Play column, the definite winner was Broken Sword. And so I will be doing that Let's Play probably in the next couple months. In the category of pre-played games, games that I've done before, we had a very close fight between the Path and the Dig, and the Path won out by just a small margin. So I will be doing that first, followed by Broken Sword. Now, if one of the video games that you voted for did not make the top of the list this time, have no fear. I'm going to leave the video up and continue to let the votes accumulate. And so you still can bump the other videos towards the top of the queue by continuing to vote for them. That's because just because the other games did not get the majority of votes, I'm using... Well, let's just say I'm using the voting to just determine more or less the order in which I do these games, so that the one that you want to see most, I do first, or at least earlier. So, if you haven't voted yet, feel free to still vote in the previous video. I'll leave it up and I'll continue to count up the votes. So, now we move on to Let's Play The Path. As I mentioned before, this is somewhat of an unorthodox video game. I think the closest genre you could get to would be an adventure game, because there is a lot of exploration. It is a point-and-click interface for the most part. There are items that can be collected. Yet, on the other hand, there's not really any particular puzzles to solve. Instead, it's almost completely exploration and environment. And as I mentioned before, I would classify it more of an experience than a video game with action and goals. But as it is kind of like an art piece, it allows a lot of interpretation on the part of the player. And so if you have an interest for that type of experience, it can actually be rather refreshing in terms of comparing it to all the other types of video games that are out there, especially the types of genres that are most popular and always tend to get made all the time. And also, this game comes from Tale of Tales, which is an independent game company. So if you are interested in supporting independent developers, this is an opportunity to do that. And the opening to the game, well, I should say the premise of the game, which can be read in the instruction manual. I'm going to read it because it's just 2 lines. So this is the first thing you read when you see the manual, and it kind of lets you know that this is not going to be your typical kind of game. It reads as follows: There is one rule in the game, and it needs to be broken. There is one goal, and when you attain it, you die. More or less, The Path is a game about growing up. And as such, a lot of my own analysis and interpretation tends to lean that way. So throughout the game, I'm going to try to give an analysis coming from 2 different viewpoints. For those who tend to look upon this type of game as a narrative, so as a story, talking about characters that go through events, you can interpret The Path as kind of a cautionary fairy tale, which is very much in the feel of the original stories, which were written between the 14th and 17th centuries. And when I say that, what I mean is that the whole game gets its inspiration, if you haven't guessed already, from the tale of Little Red Riding Hood. So, one approach I will use in the analysis is treating it as if it was a narrative. But the other way is to treat it as basically allegory, or I believe as Tolkien put it, applicability, where you can go a little bit deeper into the story events to try to discern what the events actually mean in terms of growing up, moving from childhood to adulthood. So, as each character's story, and there are 6 in this game, as each one is played out, I will offer both perspectives, both a narrative analysis, as if it was a fairy tale, and also a more allegorical or interpretive analysis as to what's going on. Now, that was long, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how I'm going to be approaching this Let's Play. So, without further ado, we will move on to the next video, and I will start the gameplay, and hopefully you'll enjoy this. So let's get started.